Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil. I am Sybil Wilkes. She is Coy Malone, and we are here to talk about what's going on in the world today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have special guest Attorney Lee Merritt is going to join us and talk to us about and give us an update on the story that Coy covered in today's newsletter, as well as one Huggy Lowdown is scheduled to join us today. He's got technical problems, so that is. Well, we're just glad to have him. And so they will both be joining us. Coy, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good in this world of adulting.
You got to get past that. You're beyond
I'm
adulting now.
trying.
You are an adult.
I'm trying. I saw a funny video over the weekend of two young men who are brothers. They had roller bags. They were rolling up to their parents' house and it showed them on the Ring camera knocking on the door. They said, "Look, we got our haircut just for you. We're willing to move in. We're going to do all the chores. You could put us on allowance because this living out here by ourselves just isn't
It's
working."
tough. It's tough. Yeah, that's the real world. We didn't call it adulting. It's just like having to move back to your parents' house. Um, is that something that you think you could do at this stage in your life?
No, no. I've
If you
entertained the thought a few times, and
if your dad was
mm,
still alive, do you think you could do it then?
I don't
No.
know. I tried to entertain the idea recently with my mom. We were both looking for places,
Mm-hmm.
and it just didn't work out. Her place of work is very far, and so
Oh.
that would make my commute over an hour to
Mm-hmm.
and from work, especially with traffic in the evenings. You could pretty much hang it up. I would spend most of my time commuting, even though I would save money.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, sometimes the price is greater than you really can afford to.
Yeah, and I don't want to put that type of wear and tear on my car because then that's going to be an even bigger bill to take care of more often, especially
Hmm.
how people drive crazy here. So
Right.
we had to
Well,
consider it and it didn't work out.
yeah. Well, you're lucky if you can. I will say that. Um, I was able to when I lived in. Well, I guess I was living in Charlotte, and I moved back to Chicago. I was very fortunate that my mother just said, come on back and until you find what you need and you can save up enough money and get your own place, and that's exactly what happened. So I was very lucky in that respect. But and I moved closer to work when I did get my own place, but there's nothing like being at home and having those responsibilities.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So Coy, let's talk about the What You Need to Know newsletter. And this is our Monday through Friday effort to super serve the African American community with our stories. And we're going to talk about Coy's story in a little bit with our very special guest, that is Attorney Lee Merritt, as I mentioned before. But we will first talk about, and Coy is going to give us that whole wrap up when we do give a full throated picture of the story. The gentleman's name is Steve Perkins, or was Steve Perkins, right?
Yes. 39-year-old
And
old Steve Perkins.
yeah, and he was killed by police in Alabama outside of his home. And Attorney Lee Merritt is the attorney of record for his family. And there's something about this case that's just, I don't know if it's mistaken identity or what, Coy, but it's just so disturbing on so many different levels.
Definitely. We're going to get into that when Attorney Lee Merritt joins us. I have a very interesting question that I just kept ruminating over and over in my head as I was reading this story and writing it for our newsletter.
You're ruminating, huh?
Yes.
Okay. You sounding more and more like Cameron Riley.
He rubs off on you.
Yeah. Big A words all the way around. All right. So I will tell you that I started off my weekend in trying to do a roundup of what's going on in Israel. And it's kind of a wait and see issue right now as Israel is mounting. They're getting ready for their full scale invasion against Hamas. These are the terrorists who started it all 10 days ago in the Middle East, in the country of Israel, and they attacked southern Israel, and ever since the war has been on between Israel and Hamas, and The losses are devastating. 1,500 people, thereabouts, 1,500 Israeli people have been killed. Over about 2,500 Palestinians have been killed. And according to the U.S. State Department, about 30 Americans have been killed. 15 are still missing. And almost 200 people have been kidnapped and are being held hostage. So that the human toll is great. And so it is more than a notion in terms of what this all looks like, and to see the pictures, the photographs of people who were killed by these terrorists, and those that stood up to fight the terrorists as it happened. And the question still remains, Coy, how did this happen? How did the Israelis not know? Where was the intelligence to let them know what was going on in this country? I, and this is a question everyone is asking.
Right. And from what I gathered over the weekend and a little bit during last week, was that the Hamas had been training for this for a long time. They even
Yeah,
trained how to climb what was thought to be an impenetrable iron gate.
right.
They trained how to do that. When they came up to the gate, they found their way into the car. They hijacked the car. They even took down the surveillance cameras. This
Yeah.
was a very thought out, plotted attack that was used in their training tactics over and over and over again until they strike. And when they strike, they did not miss, unfortunately. I wish they did.
They call this Israel's 9/11, and it really does remind me of that when you talk
Yeah.
about how they practice over and over. Just like the hijackers went in and knew how to take over the plane that they flew into those buildings.
And it's sad because, I mean, nobody thinks about, I'm at a concert and now there's gunshots.
Right,
Now
at a
there's
peace
more
conference.
gunshots.
Yeah,
Right. Now there's a tank and there are missiles and you got to run for
yeah.
cover. There's people hiding underground. There are folks still looking for their families. They're finding random photos being posted by those who still have cell phones or cell phone service, and they're finding family members in these random crowds. They're seeing news footage of their loved ones being kidnapped. Like it's horrible.
Yeah. Huggy Lowdown, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
I'm
Have you
fine,
been
Sybil.
following this situation?
Brothers with technology.
Have you been following the situation in Israel and what's
Not
going
as much
on?
as I need to. So
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
horrific.
It is horrific. That is
Yeah.
a perfect description of it. And every day something else happens.
Right.
And we'll talk about it in trending as well. But Mr. Biden, the president, has been out there since day one, lending whatever support he can to this country, sending the nation's top diplomat, that's Secretary of State Blinken, who has made the rounds not only in Tel Aviv but in Egypt, in Iran, and talking to all the leaders of these countries and to say, can't you do something with Hamas? Can't you talk to them? Hezbollah listens to you. They listen to Hezbollah. Can you talk to them? And in Egypt, can you open the border so that people can get into your country? A lot of these
Mm,
people are Americans. A lot of them are Israelis, and they need to get out because we're about to go in, as they used to say, a whomping and a stomping. And it is, every life is delicate and precious, and they're trying to save people's lives, but they are also going in with the express purpose of destroying Hamas.
This is awful. I just wanted to watch the winning Powerball numbers last Wednesday, and I cut on the TV and it's coverage of what's going on. And I was not expecting to see that much death and
Yeah,
injuries that were going
yeah,
on, especially with
yeah,
the babies. That's what
yeah.
got me, to
It's
be
horrific.
honest.
It really is. He's absolutely right. It is horrific, and to see the elderly, people who have lived through
uh,
World War II in
right.
the war camps, and they come out and they live a life, and this is how, God forbid, this is how it's going to end for
Mm,
them. It is just awful. But they are saying that Lebanon is not helping, and saying that if Israel does not come off of this, if they don't stop what they're doing in the plans to attack Hamas, they said they will feel a worldwide earthquake. So if they were prepared for this, just imagine how they're preparing for an earthquake that the world will feel, and of course that means us. Are we prepared for that? I'm not. I know I'm not. Um, Also,
If it
an
comes to the
earthquake.
west side of Atlanta, they might be.
They're not ready for that, Coy. They're not ready. In
Nope.
Huggy's backyard,
Not the SWATs.
okay, they're getting
Huh?
ready for a big vote on Capitol Hill. Still
Hmm.
trying now, 3 weeks later, trying to find a Speaker of the House. Are they ready? No, no. Jim Jordan is
What?
trying.
So what about Hakeem?
Well, that's the key because the Democrats are lockstep with the minority leader Hakeem Jeffries, and they're saying we're extending
So
this.
how many Republicans do they need to side
They
with?
need 217 votes. They have 221, so they can afford to lose four. They're doing the big boy math there, Huggy, and Jordan is just not feeling the love that he needs, and that's why Scalise dropped out because he wasn't getting it either. And now they may have to come to some sort of compromise. And the Democrats, got together last weekend and said, we're here and we'd like to be, work in
Right,
bipartisanship with you.
right. They don't have
But
that
but
in their mind at all.
they hate that idea. They
Because
just can't.
they can't move Hakeem like that.
Right.
Hakeem, he's a spitter.
Yeah.
Hakeem has bars.
Right. Right. Right.
He,
Right.
that broken go.
Yeah.
And
He can't.
he's not, Kevin
McCarthy.
Kevin
Right.
McCullough.
So keep an eye on that. A big vote coming up this week. And also a couple of other things in the What You Need to Know newsletter. This is really good from our Black Health Matters segment. Gratitude can help your health. It's a habit and practice that may actually change your perception of well being. Sometimes you feel like you can't catch a break, and it says look at the small things and let the small things kind of add up. And when you acknowledge your gratitude for having these positives in your life, and that can do something to turn your health around. And there's nothing like a positive mindset that can
That's
do
right.
that. So
Absolutely.
please check that out, as well as the Ministry Monday, and talking about the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And our friend Willie Mae McIver always does a great job with that. Little known Black History fact, as well as the wellness check. Our friend Cherie White making us look bad, and she looks so fabulous in doing all of her yoga poses and talks about that. We got to get her on the show because she is such a wellness advocate, and she does so many great things for her health. And we just need her out there to show people what needs to be done and how we can live
Or what we're not doing.
right. And to kind of change that mindset that we talked about with gratitude and getting that done. Huggy, you're a pescatarian. Are you still
I haven't relapsed yet, Sybil. Not
okay.
unless somebody
Okay.
snuck some bacon bits in some of my food.
Okay.
That's a little tastier than normal.
Okay.
You
That's
just ate $60 worth of bacon bits, Negro.
right. And Coy are you vegan, Coy, or are you
What you
vegetarian?
this month, Coy?
I'll say vegetarian
Oh,
this month.
I'd say
Yes.
vegetarian this month.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. All right. And check out our little known Black history fact. This is about Fritz Pollard. I love this particular little known Black history fact. He was the first Black coach in the NFL. And just an amazing character, and went into the Hall of Fame back in the day. But he was the first. He coached four different teams and founded a Chicago football team of all African American players, sort of like the Negro Leagues, right?
Right.
And did this in an incredible way. So those are some of the things that we
Chicago
have in.
Black Bears.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, those are some of the things that we talk about in the What You Need to Know newsletter. Please go to sybilwilkes.com to subscribe. It is absolutely free, and we'll have your your newsletter in your email box every Monday through Friday, first thing. Let us, Yolanda, do we have Attorney Lee Merritt with us? There he is. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, good evening.
Man, we try to
Uh,
hit you with that voice, that Esquire voice.
Yes.
right, right. Right? The Esquire voice. That's
Powerful.
absolutely right.
That's that Win Case's voice right there.
Woo.
And don't take no mess voice,
You know
right?
how sometimes you have a lawyer, you're like, man, I'm going to jail, man.
Oh man, yeah, that's the one with the oversized
Yeah.
suit on.
Yeah.
Attorney Lee Merritt is joining us, and we're talking about the story that Coy provided in today's newsletter. So, Attorney Merritt, we're going to have Coy just give us a quick wrap up on what she reported on the Steve Perkins, and then we'll start with the questioning and get an update. And in advance, Attorney Merritt, if I may, also get an update from you about Ralph Yarrow.
Sure.
That is another client of yours, the young black man that was shot when he went to the wrong address in Kansas City not too long ago. So, okay, so go ahead, Coy. Tell us about your story that you have from the What You Need to Know newsletter.
So all eyes are on the Decatur Police Department in Alabama in reference to Steve Perkins, who was a 39-year-old black man. He was fatally shot outside of his home. And what happened was a confrontation between him and a tow truck driver. The tow truck driver was attempting to repossess his truck. Apparently, he was behind on payments. According to his family, the payments were all up to date. So this shouldn't have been a situation at all. So the police were called. They escorted the tow truck driver back to the home. There was video surveillance from a neighbor's camera that captured what happened. And there's body police camera video from the police, but it hasn't been released as of yet. As far as I know, it hasn't been released yet. But anyway, what happened was they were arguing. The tow truck driver comes back with the police. The police basically yell, "Get on the ground," and then there's shots fired immediately after that. So now the police chief is apologizing, saying that there is incorrect information that was given about the encounter between Mr. Perkins and the police. He was saying that Mr. Perkins was ordered to get on the ground and that the police identified themselves, but they're showing like different things within the camera footage. Basically, he had no awareness of that the police were there. He had no time to get on the ground. The police were firing shots immediately, and he died from his injuries. So there's also been protests going on in Decatur, Alabama, and the police are investigating themselves with an internal investigation. So to me, that doesn't sound right. I feel like the police are trying to avoid accountability and possibly a lawsuit. That is the question that's been ruminating in my head. What prompted the police to come out and actually apologize about the misinformation that was portrayed about the shooting?
I guess that's a question for me. Why law
Yeah,
enforcement is
it's
why
Yes.
law enforcement is suddenly trying to do damage control, and the issue
right.
is something called ratification, right? A police department is not necessarily responsible for all their police officers' behavior, particularly if they're not doing their job at the time that we're looking into. And here, the officer who was responsible for Steve Perkins' murder was not doing his job. Our investigation is ongoing, and we have investigators on the ground right now. And I'm working with some talented attorneys in the area. But what we've discovered so far, the textbook definition of an ambush is when you secret yourself around someone's location without their knowledge, surreptitiously surround their home, create an opportunity for them to put themselves in harm's way, and then capitalize on that in order to do whatever you came to do. Not to be too much of a distraction, but we saw a similar case in Kansas City, Missouri recently. There was an officer named Eric DeVolcanier back in 2020. Actually, it was 2017, but the trial went forward in 2020. And Eric DeVolcanier ambushed Cameron Lamb in his home. And when Eric DeVolcanier entered Cameron Lamb's home, he said Cameron Lamb was pointing a gun at him. What the court did during his criminal trial when he was charged with manslaughter for the murder of Cameron Lamb, he said, "Yeah, but how did you get to his home?" And says, "Well, I entered his property. I didn't have a warrant. I didn't have an exigency. The Constitution didn't allow me to enter his home, but I did anyway. And when I did, he was pointing a gun at me. What else was I supposed to do?" Right? And the court says, well, you can't create the danger by violating the Fourth Amendment and then say, well, nothing else to do here, had to use deadly force. In that case, we saw the first conviction of a police officer in Kansas City history that's still under review by the state of Missouri. Here's something very similar. These officers had no right to participate. I'm at a loss of words because I've never seen anything quite like this. I've seen people killed in their home. We saw Cameron Lamb. We recently saw Tatiana Jefferson. We've seen, unfortunately, Botham Shemja. We've seen case after case after case of African Americans killed in their home. This one went just a bit further because of the ambush. We saw law enforcement officers allegedly receive a complaint from a tow truck driver that while trying to do their job, they were accosted by a man with a gun. Well, that should have been the end of the story. Police officers turned on their lights. They should have went to that person's home, says, hey, we heard you got a gun. You got to come out with your hands up. They didn't do that. Instead, they told the tow truck driver, go back to this man's home and complete your tow, and we'll hide around his property. And if he comes out again, you're right. They gave him, it was less than 3 seconds. Police get down on the ground, pop. There's a constant stream of events. And so Mr. Perkins, who was doing the right thing, there was someone in his yard at 2 o'clock in the morning, illegally taking his truck. He approached the tow truck driver with a flashlight affixed to a firearm. And he told the tow truck driver, hey, put down my truck. It's the last thing that Steve Perkins ever said. Put down my truck. And the next thing you know, he was shot. My understanding is he was struck at least 7 times, at least 14 rounds were fired at him. Of those 14 rounds fired at him, there were at least 4 police officers present. Only one officer opened fire, and he emptied his clip.
What?
The one officer who opened fire had a previous relationship with the tow truck driver. They knew each other. It was the tow truck driver who had called that officer there. And that's why you have the tow truck company and the Decatur Police Department violating all kinds of police policies, ambushing a man at his home to add insult to injury. After they ambushed Steve Perkins and murdered him in his front lawn, they took his truck anyway.
What?
They towed the truck from the scene, which now, of course, is evidence.
Right.
So we are now involved. You're right. The city and some of the agents of the municipality are starting to walk back some of that behavior. I think we are, in fact, going to uncover something a lot more sinister than we initially thought. We live in the deadliest police culture in the modern world, and so we've kind of grown used to misuse of force. But I don't think this was just a misuse of force case. I think this represents a policy within the Decatur Police Department, something that we've seen across the country, where the law enforcement community aligns itself with the corporate power structure. And the enemy, of course, in that case, is always Black and brown people. When the police begin to work for corporations as opposed to the citizens of Decatur.
This is worse than what I thought.
We're talking with civil rights and racial justice attorney Lee Merritt. Where do you know that name from? He's been with us a number of times to talk about the cases in which Black folks have been unjustly treated. In this case, a Black man murdered as he was protecting his property in the middle of the night. And did I see something, Attorney Merritt, regarding the fact that there was never an order put out for the tow truck driver to go to this man's address?
My understanding is that months prior, the car entered repossession status.
Okay.
And prior to this incident, which is September 29, at the beginning of the month of September, the bill was brought up to speed. The payments were up to par, and he should have been brought out of repossession status. Whether it was or was not, I'm not sure. Those tow truck companies generally are independent contractors, so they may have the contract and didn't know that it had been withdrawn. I mean, regardless, let's say it was a rightful tow. There's no way it should end like this.
No.
Even if they had a contract to tow the man's car, this is not how it's done under any circumstances. And
so Steve Perkins' family has engaged you in this case?
Yes, ma'am. He has 2 surviving daughters and a wife, Catrella Perkins, a 7-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old daughter. We are opening the estate now, and we're going to move forward with a civil suit. Of course, what I tell all the families that I come to represent is that the federal courts give me permission to come in and file claims against the municipality, against the officers, but it doesn't give me a jail to put them into. And what happened to Mr. Perkins was a crime. And so we met with Scott Anderson, who is the local prosecutor there. to ask where he was with his investigation. And every municipality handles these cases a bit differently. I am not impressed with Mr. Anderson's strategy for handling the case. As Coy pointed out earlier, he seems to be content with allowing law enforcement officers to finish investigating themselves according to whatever timeline they come up with, get him a report, and he plans to allow them then to present to a grand jury. That's a hands-off approach for prosecutors. It's the reason you don't see accountability very often in the South or throughout the United States concerning misuse of force, is because we need prosecutors who are willing to prosecute. And here it seems that Mr. Anderson is following the trend. Most prosecutors, I mean, they have to work with law enforcement, so they're not zealous about prosecuting them.
Wow. So this is, and you talked about the case in Kansas City that happened in 2017. It finally went to trial in 2020. Is that the norm, that elongated period of time between the action itself and the trial getting started, or is this where we are now?
It's the norm. Sybil, you pointed out that you and I have known each other for quite some time. I think the first case that we've discussed together was Jordan Edwards back in 2016.
Yep.
That case was just resolved last year, right?
Wow.
And now Roy Oliver, in that case, the officer was the first officer convicted in 50 years in Dallas County of murder, and he's in prison. And we've added some people to that lineup since then. But yeah, the civil rights work is long, it's arduous. The law is generally against us. We have not dismantled the 50 years of war on drug policies that make prosecuting police officers almost impossible. We give them something called a qualified immunity, which today works out almost to be an absolute immunity. It is very difficult to hold officers responsible for misconduct. All they need is a justification. And in here, there's going to be a clear justification. This case would be difficult to take in Texas. And I'm not saying the law in Alabama is any better than in Texas. But because of the ambush, the style that they relied on, we have to go after that specific policy. Because what they did there is similar to what happened to Cameron Land. They put Mr. Perkins in a position where he is holding a firearm and he's going to turn his body toward the first sound that he hears, which happens to be a law enforcement officer. And so that officer is going to say, I'm entitled to qualified immunity under the law because I was facing a deadly threat. It's my job to face these deadly threats. And you all trained me what to do. I'm supposed to shoot body center mass until that target drops to the ground. And typically that means, another Black person is dead, or Black or brown body, or really any race in this country, because that's the system that we operate under.
Right. If you could just explain to people, because this was a story that we covered almost immediately. Jordan was a young man who was with his brothers over spring break, and there was a party. There was a house party. They knew to get out of there. And so they left. And as they were leaving, his brother behind the wheel, and Jordan, I believe, was in the back seat of the car. And the police, front passenger. Okay. And he, the police trying to stop them, shot at the car, and he killed this young man in the car.
That's right. Roy Oliver says that he heard gunshots in the area. He assumed that it was coming from this car of teenagers going home, not breaking the law at all. Now, initially, of course, he said that the car was speeding towards his partner. In order to save his life, he had to intervene. The video evidence, and we thank God for the body camera and dash cam footage that exists in that case, showed that that wasn't true. The car was slowly pulling away from him when he lifted his high-power rifle. There was 5 young men in that car, all teenagers, and he shot 15-year-old Jordan Edwards in the neck, and he came out of his temple. It was a very, very difficult case. So as you recall, it was devastating for the Dallas community. His parents, of course, are still in crisis, honestly, some 6 years later. And these cases just don't go away.
I have a question.
Of course.
Attorney Merritt, what do you think it will take for officers in these cases and other cases to be held accountable?
What will it take for accountability?
Yes.
We really need to, in my opinion, after working these cases, we really need to reimagine public safety in America altogether. if we get into a historical approach about policing in America, we've seen a turn in the style of policing that we have in the last 50 years. That's when we start to average 3 bodies a day. That's when we started to average 1 out of 3 Black young men going to prison. That's when our prison population moved from 100,000 people in all of prisons all across the United States 50 years ago to about 7.2 million people under some form of state supervision, prison, parole in the last 50 years. We've created a prison industrial complex. And if you talk to any strategist, I mean, you all were talking about the Israeli state earlier. Well, in order for Israel to remain a state, they have to suppress the native population. It's just necessary for them to do the work. And that's the style of government that they've chosen, which is a militarized style of government. We taught them that. We had our police officers go train their police officers about how to subjugate a native population, right? And so the only way to do that is to break a few eggs, right? And that's the system of policing that we continue to allow. So we really need to say, all right, well, we started a war on drugs meant to, fund some out of the country wars that we're all aware of now. There's been books about it. There's, TV shows about it, movies about it. What do we now do about it? We all repented for the war on drugs without actually changing anything. People are still in prison for cannabis. So the short answer, Coy, and there is no short answer, of course, to your question, but the short answer to your question, if I were to attempt, is we have to back away from militarized policing. We need to try a new approach. We're the only nation in the modern world who relies so heavily on enforcement by gun. If you're sick, if you're poor, if you're addicted in this country, you're going to go to jail. And if you resist, you can die. And that's just what it is.
Is the George Floyd policing bill going to make a difference?
It would if it was passed.
Right.
Is it going to be passed?
Well, if we get the right leadership, we might be able to get that done this time. I'm not sure.
There's a lot that needs to be done. I think our greatest opportunity to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is when we had protests in all 50 states, where people were demanding some sort of reform, and we couldn't get it done even in those circumstances.
Right.
Now that the pendulum is swinging in the other direction, the likelihood of ending qualified immunity, which I think is the first step of dismantling our militarized police system, decriminalizing addiction and poverty, those are steps that we first have to soberly look at the system that exists. We can get into a political conversation back and forth, and luckily, I benefit from being able to speak with executives, White House leaders, presidents, because I represent so many families. And there is no Democratic answer. There's no Republican answer. When Democrats try to talk about police reform, they're afraid that they look like they're encouraging violence in the streets.
Right,
because
the cops,
Right. And so they back away from that conversation almost as quickly as they get into it. And of course, the Republican line is law and order. And so they don't mind the system of policing that costs so much in human life and, underdevelopment of communities. That is their goal. And so our community is literally stuck between a rock and a hard place in that regard.
We have about a minute left. I do want to get an update on Ralph Yarl. That is another case that just hit my heart. And the 16-year-old boy went to pick up his twin brothers, went to the wrong address, and the man who owned the home shot through the door and narrowly missed this boy, and he hit him, but the damage that was done was not to the extent that it could have been. And now they started the initial hearing?
We had a preliminary hearing about a month ago for Mr. Andrew Lester, who is an octarian. He's an 80-plus-year-old man. And for that reason, it seems that the prosecutor and the local flavor says, well, maybe we shouldn't be as hard on him. I've pointed out that we have the president of the United States who's an octarian. Most of we can't say that these people aren't responsible for their actions. This is a man who lived alone, who's harbored hatred and animosity for quite some time. I'm concerned about the lethargy with which that prosecution is moving forward. The state seems content, quite frankly, to allow the man to die of natural causes prior to a trial.
Wow.
What happened to Ralph was a miracle. And Sybil, I know you said we're out of time, but there wasn't a near miss. It was a direct hit. A bullet went into his skull, cracked
It
his
did
skull,
go into a skull, right? Yeah.
and entered his cavity. And on the day after he was shot, medical providers opened up his skull and were scraping bullet fragments off of it.
Mm.
We don't really know why those bullet fragments didn't penetrate the soft part of his skull and kill him
My
or do
God.
permanent damage.
God.
But within 72 hours of being shot, he was back at home with his family and recovering. And he is doing exceptionally well. It looks like the trial will start about a month after he gets to college next year.
Which will it be an HBCU? Will you have anything to do with that? Will he be a Morehouse man?
You know that I'm pushing toward Morehouse.
If not, he
he's
can go
going
to Jackson State.
Attorney Lee Merritt, thank you so much for your time. As always, I enjoy talking to you and getting up to speed on all of these things. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, brother. Keep wearing that cape.
Thank
brother.
you.
That's right. That's right. Attorney Lee Merritt joining us, a civil rights activist, and give our best to our friend Sean King, please, in doing the job and doing great work at that. All right, so let's move to trending topics. Huggy, where are you going? What you doing? What's the word? What's the haps?
My next show, we have a show coming up in Sybil, I don't know.
Well, let me say this.
Holiday Inn at College Park, Maryland.
College Park.
Me, Chris Paul, and Mike Brooks. Then I have a show in Nashville at the Mogul Con with Dominique and Dominique A Train.
Okay.
So I got it. I only had a date, so
that's okay.
Which is
we'll get him up there. We'll definitely promote. I know that Chris is not here tonight, but maybe he's working on his little act because he's got a big weekend coming up at the DC Improv, right?
Yeah, with George.
With George and Dr. Sylvia Tremor.
Right.
Just brilliant. That combination of people and him working with those, those landmarks in the comedy business.
Right.
Those are giants. Those are absolute giants. So, Hug, if you send me those dates, I'll get them out there for you.
Okay, I'll
too.
send it to you right now.
Okay.
Saturday, November the 4th.
Oh, which will be here before you know it.
Yeah, at the Grand Ole Opry.
As soon as you blink.
At the Gaylord Opera Land.
Oh, excuse me, the gay boy. All right. Oh,
Okay.
Grand Ole Opry. That's big time. Look at you. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We've been talking about the situation in Israel, and now this is the result of the violence that's going on. A Palestinian American child was stabbed to death in a Chicago suburb by his family's landlord. According to law enforcement, it says the boy's Muslim background was the motivation for the crime when 71-year-old Joseph Zuba, who has been charged with first-degree murder in the Chicagoland area after he allegedly knifed the 6-year-old boy Wadia Al-Fayoum over the weekend, and cops saying the kid was stabbed upwards of 26 times at his family's apartment. Wadia's mother, Hanan Shaheen, was also stabbed a dozen times during the attack, and she survived the ordeal. Now, check this out. The funeral was today. This happened over the weekend. The funeral was today. And the mother is in critical condition in the hospital, could not attend her child's funeral. And his wife, the landlord's wife, said he had become radicalized by listening to conservative talk radio and was so convinced that all Muslims meant nothing good for this country, that he was going to the people that he had a great relationship with, according to this woman.
And they showed who they were.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's crazy because the word Islam literally translates to peace.
Right.
That's it.
That's exactly right. And so now we have hate crime added to the murder and the attempted murder charges, and aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. And in this case, it was a knife. The feds are involved, as I said, because now it's a hate crime, and said it was all due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East after the Hamas attacked Israel. It's awful. Huggy, are you or Coy, are either of you a T-Mobile customer?
Yes.
Okay, well, listen up. T-Mobile is moving some of its customers on older phone plans to the company's latest options, which could result in customers paying more on their monthly bills.
No.
Yeah,
Thought you were
so
gonna
check
tell me
this.
I get a discount.
Well, you should call them and say you should. Customers affected will see a change in their phone bill starting in November, and this week they're supposed to be sending out letters to customers. They
I'm gonna
say
send
that
it back.
customers on the company's older One, Simple Choice, Magenta, and Magenta 55 Plus plans. That's not you, Coy. Will be moved to
It
newer
might be my
options.
mom.
Okay. Customers affected by this change will be sent notices starting tomorrow. And T-Mobile said that there will be an increase of approximately $10 per line, with the change noted that those who sign up for auto pay can save $5 per line. So you're still going to end up paying more. But those people who are affected are the One, the Simple Choice, Magenta, and Magenta 55 Plus. And if you get those letters from T-Mobile emails, or you get it in the mail, make sure you open it and call them and get this straight.
About to get a landline.
Sybil, you have a landline? You don't have a landline?
I
Boy?
haven't gotten a landline yet, but I lost my phone not too long ago, and I said I was going to get a landline
So you
because I
just
was
felt helpless. You ain't have a landline or a cell phone?
right, right, exactly. Do you have a landline, Hug?
Yes. I don't know
Good
the
for
number,
you.
but I, I had to pick it up and call my cell phone.
Right, right,
Yeah.
and then there's that, right?
You need to
Um,
invest in some pigeons, Sybil, so you can
Yes.
communicate.
I had to go over to Yolanda's house, which is a couple of blocks away, and say, "Call me," but there was nobody home there,
Oh
and then I
Lord.
went to look for their landline, which they don't have any
So
longer.
you
It's like,
you
ah.
running around like you in bird box. You can't.
Exactly, Hug. Exactly. Here's another sad story. I don't know if you
Oh,
all remember this. The young man who was on the autism spectrum, he was in Colorado, was coming home from the store one night. People called the police, said that he was acting strange, and it was August. He was wearing
was it late
a
night,
full
Sybil?
hat. Yeah.
Yeah.
A young black man who was apparently just the heart of his mother and his family and his community's world, just immensely talented. And they said that Elijah McClain was walking home. It was after dark on this August night, wearing clothing that most people in August were not wearing. Two Aurora, Colorado police charged in his death in 2019. They came to the end of the trial the other day, and one officer was found guilty on two charges. The other officer was acquitted on all charges. He was found guilty of criminally negligent homicide and third-degree assault. And they have a third officer. The jury selection is beginning this week on this one. Nathan Woodyard is facing charges of reckless manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide.
Mm.
This should never have happened. They should never have called the emergency crew, and they administered ketamine. He was in a coma for several days before he ultimately died. This young black man walking home from a
Mm,
convenience store,
mm,
just minding his
mm,
own business and trying to tell police, "I have a condition. Please don't touch me. Please, give me
right,
space," and
right.
all of this. And they took him down, and he became very upset, and that was the beginning of the end.
Mm, mm, mm.
We lost a major icon in entertainment. They call her an icon. Do you remember Three's Company, Huggy?
Yeah, Suzanne Summers.
Suzanne Summers died
Yeah.
after a long
Wow.
battle with cancer,
Mm.
famous as Chrissy from Three's Company and
Hmm.
other TV shows and movies, passed away Sunday morning. Today would have been her 77th birthday.
Wow.
Man.
The family was gathered to celebrate, and unfortunately, they were there for her leave taking. Um,
Hmm.
and so they're having a memorial, a burial this week, and a memorial. Now, she's been dealing with cancer for like 20 years,
Wow.
and there are questions about how she dealt with the cancer. Initially, breast cancer, then there was skin cancer, and she did not want to go through the traditional cures or as
Wow.
doctors are want to do those particular cures. And so
For
they said
20
this might have
years, Sybil.
20
Wow.
years
That's
she
like
battled
unheard
this.
of, huh?
Yeah, it really is. She was first diagnosed in 2000, developed with skin cancer, developed breast cancer shortly thereafter, and on and off for years. It finally returned this summer. And when she went to seek treatment in the Midwest, they said there was nothing they could do, and they sent her home. And but here's what I want to talk about. Not for her starring in Three's Company, although that's important, and we'll bring that up. Not her starring in American Graffiti. She was the blonde girl driving the Thunderbird that Richard Dreyfuss' character fell in love with. And she starred in She's the Sheriff and Step by Step. All of those are great things. But when she was in Three's Company, she started the fight for pay equity.
Wow.
John Ritter was making like $150,000 per
What?
episode. And she
Mhm.
and the other character, and I can't, and I'm just losing the name, the woman's name,
Janet.
but they were making,
Mhm.
yeah, play Janet. They were making considerably less, if not half, of what John Ritter was making.
And they was
And when
carrying the
she
show just as much as John Ritter.
Exactly.
Right.
Wow.
Exactly. And so she went and told them she wanted this, and they said no. And so she went back to work, and they came around again when the contract came up, and they said no. And she left the show,
Wow.
and really put her foot down for pay equity. And then she went on to become an amazing businesswoman.
Wow.
Remember the Thigh Master? Anybody have the Thigh
Yes.
Master?
That was her, Sybil?
That was her.
Yes.
Dang. Thanks for
She
the
sold
videos.
10 million of those gadgets.
Top Master?
Yes.
Wow.
She was a gazillionaire.
Wow.
That
She
was
and
a
her
thing in the
husband.
90s.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, Jane Fonda was doing all of, that, but the Thigh Master, that was the thing. Yeah.
I could
So,
just sit down and just move
yep,
my legs. That's
that's right. That's right.
it.
Yep.
She taught
So, rest in
a
peace.
whole lot of
Yeah.
people how to do the butterfly.
Right. Right. Exactly. That's exactly.
A whole lot of chair dancers. No, I'm good.
You all right there, young woman? Yeah. Oh, all good. All good. Black Butterfly. Joyce DeWitt was the
Joyce
other
DeWitt.
actress
Right,
on the Three's
right.
Company.
Is she the
Um,
last
yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah.
wow.
John Ritter died
Wow.
many years ago, and
Yeah.
now it is Joyce DeWitt who is the last one standing.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Um, and
And
let
their
me end
neighbor,
up.
Mr. Roper. Oh.
Oh,
Mr. Roper
and
millionaire.
Don Knotts, remember him?
Mr.
He came
Furley?
in.
Shoot,
Yeah,
yeah,
he came in there for
yeah.
a little while. I'm going to end on it's not a tragic note, but it's a little quirky. Coy, this is in Atlanta. Where else? The woman who's been who's been ridiculed
Listen to
online.
Texas talking.
Yeah, okay. Who posted a TikTok of her downing 48 oysters.
Oh gosh. Ooh.
Did you hear this story?
I think I
Yes.
seen that
Oh.
story.
Right. It was, and she
You
she
don't like
did.
oysters, Cory?
No.
I'm sorry to hear that. Go ahead, Silver.
Well, this woman loves her some oysters, and she was meeting this guy for a drink. That's all they were meeting for. He had been after her and after her, just let me buy you a drink. Let me buy you a drink. And so she said, okay. She went on the night where a plate of oysters is $15, 12 oysters for $15.
Okay.
So they started with the drink. She went and got a platter of 12 oysters. She ate those. Then she ordered another one. And then she ordered a third plate, and then
Mm.
she ordered a fourth plate. And the boy is like, I'm only in this for a drink. And she is filming all of this. She's recording all of this, uh,
Slurping and all. Ugh.
slurping it all, putting the hot sauce, the lemon on the oysters.
I bet he did. I bet he sat there in that seat and watched her do all that.
And then Hug, he got up and removed himself. He had no Thigh Master.
But he
I
had no
don't
thigh
think.
master.
Yeah.
Oh, she ordered
Uh,
more food before that. After
She
that.
ordered crab cakes and then some
some
sort of
potatoes.
potato entree, right? And the tab came to $184. He had already fled the scene, and the video's been circulated, and people are talking about
Where
that's
the
not
heck did
dating.
she get all that food for $180 something? That's a lot
It
of
was the special $15 per platter, so that's what
yeah, that's a lot.
$90. The crab cake, the entree, and the drinks.
He left her right there. And it's so
I like
crazy because it makes me wonder, like, there's these women that are walking around here and they look so expensive, yet they lack so much class.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people are
Yeah.
saying, Coy. They're either like, go for it, girl, or, he's not worth it. And other people are saying, that's not the way you do it on on a first date.
Right. She went in.
Especially, and she was
Social
filming the
media,
entire time.
Right. She was
and she's
live.
filming. She's live.
Yeah, she said she wanted to make content for her page.
Right.
on a first date.
Yes.
On a first date.
Slurping
Slurping the
Slurping
oysters.
on. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So what I'm saying,
There's nothing wrong with a good slurp. Yeah.
not on the first day. I mean, they should have stuck around, Sybil. But on the first date, imagine what she's gonna do on the second date.
Okay.
Huggy, would you be saying that if this happened at Papa Do's? Come on, let's be real.
What?
If you took a date to Papa Do's and they were slurping like that across the table on the first date and filming for their TikTok page.
It depends whether I had a swamp thing or not.
And somebody to slurp that up for you. That is brilliant. Yeah, so I'm not sure how you all feel about this dating etiquette and all that kind of stuff.
I mean,
Huggy, how would you have responded? What do you think?
Oh no, I wouldn't have been out on a date with her. I'd have knocked them oysters out of her hand. Excuse me.
That's funny. That's very funny.
I'm too vegan for that date.
Okay. Too vegan for that date.
Too vegan. That's a good way to end it.
What happened if they went through the drive-thru?
Let's move to entertainment, and
that wasn't an entertainment, Sybil.
It was a little lighter story, but this involves a verified, certified entertainer. It's apparently about Cardi B, and this is from the Celebrities Are Just Like Us file. Cardi B and Offset, her husband, are said to be stressed out by tenants who are 9 months behind in their rent.
Whoa.
Tenants who are 9, and you know what they're saying, right? Oh, they got the money. They don't need my money. I'm good.
Right. Wow.
They have invested their money in real estate property, and during a recent Instagram live, she talked about the stressors of being someone's landlord, as they have tenants who are way behind. We have tenants that haven't even paid an effing cent in 9 months.
Jeez.
And sometimes we'd be so busy, and our house managers would be so busy, and we're like, you know what? Don't even take them to court, because we're just tired and we don't have the time. And I'm trying to not use all the words she used in this. This is the reality of owning property, and I'm just talking to.
She said it's easier. An investment in Birkin bags, I believe.
She said, and I'm a Birkin girl.
Better investment.
Yep. She said she'd take a Birkin over property from here on out, whether it's home properties or investment properties. I love me a good effing Birkin and don't want to put up with all of this effing nonsense.
Squatting is at an all-time high these days. It is going like on and on and on. I have a friend that says they know a family member that's doing that. And I'm like, how are they even getting away with this?
I thought that around my sister way. Right?
Yeah, like I thought, like the people, I thought they get put out. I thought,
they so savage with it, Sybil. They order Uber Eats. they get packages delivered.
That's funny. That's funny, and sad at the same time that that people are doing that. But here we are in this economic situation, and people just walking out of the stores with packages of food, with people
don't pay. And my brother-in-law drives the Metro bus. They was talking about how people don't even pay to get on the bus.
Yeah,
they just walk on the bus now.
And like, hey. And you're scared because you don't know if they're packing, what they will do to you.
More people don't pay than they pay.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is like the Great Depression, but with more violence.
People do what they want to do.
Yeah, for sure, more violence. Yeah. It was the mobsters back in the Depression that, the violent ones. Now it's everybody, because you don't know who has what.
Mobbing and it's just.
Yep. It's
ugly times, man.
it's ugly times is right.
Yes.
Huggy, I'm so glad to see you. Thank you so
I'm
much
sorry, Sybil. I've
for
been in my
joining us.
head. Sybil.
I know.
I'll see y'all next week. I'm
Okay.
putting
All
that.
right. We
Don't
look
call
forward
me.
to it.
I'll be here. I promise.
Okay. Okay.
It was good seeing y'all. It's good to see
It's
you,
good
Coy.
seeing you too. We're going to close out with the jewel.
Well, that's it.
Free your mind from the negativity and troubles of the world, if
From the
just
N
for a
words.
day.
Oh, you said negativity. Oh,
Negativity.
okay. Take this off so I can hear a little bit.
Free your mind from the negativity and troubles of the world, if just for one day. Thank you so much, Coy, for a great job. We appreciate you, Huggy.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you for watching and joining us today. We'll see you all again soon. Aloha.